Hey, this is the Antisocial Socialite back at it again. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel or you have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. So when I get to running this mouth, baby, you are in the loop. You see the title, you know what time it is. We are talking about coronavirus. This is a battle for souls, okay? So as we can see, the coronavirus situation is big. I don't even know what word to use to describe it, because part of me is like, it's like a flow diagram. It's like, is the coronavirus real? Yes or no? You know, no, go left. Yes, go right. Is there actually a virus? Well, we know there's a huge family of coronaviruses, not just COVID-19. Coronavirus is just, you know, it could be like a common cold or a flu, to all the way up to whatever this respiratory issue is. Is it actually a virus, or is it some type of biological weapon? Was it released naturally? Did it occur naturally? Or was it actually a strategic attack, maybe against the Chinese people? Was it designed to start in China and then affect the whole world? And the reason why I wanted to make this video is because a lot of people are having discussions about the coronavirus outside of maybe the truther community, or especially the Christian truther community. But to me, because this is following the blueprint laid out in Revelations 13, Matthew 24:25, and a lot of the writings about the end times, for me, it becomes very apparent that this is just a multi-pronged attack against humanity. And it's really all about souls. It's not about the economy. It's not about, you know, buying and selling houses. It's not about food or famine or vaccines or whatever. It's not about any of that stuff per se. It is a multi-pronged attack where you have multiple. It's like when you're trying to demolish a huge building, you don't just have one huge explosion. You have several packs of dynamite scattered throughout the building, and then you converge all of those explosions to bring that building down. You know, I find it very interesting that you had two World Trade Towers, and when they rebuilt the trade towers or the World Trade Center, instead of rebuilding the two towers, which I would have liked to see, they built one huge tower. And a lot of people have said this is symbolic of the duality, the dichotomy between the light and the dark, the old and the new, the rich and the poor, the old order and the new order. And there's a breaking down of the old order and the establishing of one new order. For there to be a new world order, every other order has to be collapsed. This is not really about politics or religion. It's about unifying the whole planet in one. And as I think I said in previous videos, you know, Bush Sr., I think, was the one who said, like, the whole world will be united when they have a fear of a common enemy. And then he tried to propose this thing about aliens, and if there was, for example, an alien invasion from, and you know, obviously the threat is coming from outside of planet Earth, the whole planet would unite, setting aside all their differences. And you see, that plan is flawed, because not everyone believes in aliens. Some people would welcome aliens. They'd be like, I don't believe in God. I believe the planet was seeded by aliens. You always then get into that chicken egg argument of, well, where did those aliens come from? You know, that's obviously aliens seeded those aliens. It's like, oh, so who seeded the aliens that seeded the aliens? And then it just becomes like a never ending game of, you know, where did this come from? Where did that come from? It's like, oh, well, we now know that, you know, the Higgs boson can take energy and change it into matter. Or who put the Higgs boson there? Well, probably a smaller particle than the Higgs. And it's like, Oh, okay, whatever. So some people don't believe in aliens. Some people wouldn't care if there were aliens. Some people would welcome aliens. So you couldn't really create mass hysteria with the concept of an alien invasion because there's just too many people who are not on board. The other thing that people have been saying, especially like, this as I'm going around and people focusing so much on the economy, or they're focusing so much on the health system, or they're focusing so much on mandatory vaccinations. Some are talking about microchipping and this and that. It's like, if you have, like, why the thing about this video, I was going to call it like people focusing on how, like, why, but you have to understand how. It's like, it's very clever, although it's a fiendish plan, and this is alleged. I'm working on the assumption that there are a small group of people who really run the planet, and as you go down the pyramid, you get more people who feel like they're in the know, but even what they know is limited compared to what the next level above knows. We know that there are organizations, many secret societies, from Freemasons to the Bilderberg Group to some of these foundations like the Bill Gates Foundation. I would put that in there because we don't really know what Bill Gates is doing, but I think he's the one who's talking about mandatory vaccinating. Obviously, you have Trilateral Commission, you have Bohemian Grove, you have all of these secret organizations. Obviously, the Illuminati, people say, oh, Illuminati, again, hiding it in plain sight. If you have the Illuminati online and, you can join it, it doesn't mean to say that you are really illuminated. Okay, the people who are really at the top, they are not seen. They are not heard. They are not known. So, okay, we can talk about people going to the Bilderberg Group. We can talk about people going up to Bohemian Grove and all of that. But even the Illuminati. But beyond that, again, it could just be a front and a smokescreen, especially because it's out in the open. It's like, we know you exist, Illuminati. We know you exist, our secret society, blah, 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 blah. But everybody's so focused on talking about them, and it's kind of like, oh, here we go again. You got your tinfoil hat, da 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 da. Everybody's so busy focusing on the groups that we now commonly know to believe exist, that the ones who are really working behind the scenes go unnoticed. Okay, so people talk often about why. Well, when you do this, you do that, or Trump is this and Trump is that, or Boris is bringing this, and Boris does want this and Boris doesn't want that, and it's like, one of my favorite movies is this movie called The Inside Man. I don't know if anybody's watched it, but if you haven't seen it, I would suggest go and watch it because I thought it was really clever. It might not be a thriller minute, but I thought it was really clever because it's basically Clive Owen and a group of bank robbers, and the movie is set where you believe it's about a bank robbery, but actually Clive Owen wants some documents and secrets that are in a safety deposit box. So the bank robbery is really just a cover for him getting the stuff in that box. And some people entered as robbers, but they came in as civilians. And others came in later, I believe, dressed in like orange jumpsuits. Everybody who was appearing as a civilian was then like separated into groups in different rooms. So, and what they would do is, for every person who was a robber, whether they appeared as a civilian just standing in the bank looking like they're going to use the bank, or coming in a jumpsuit, there was an actual civilian who physically resembled them. And this was important because what they would do is, a robber would appear in one of these rooms where there was a group of hostages, take one of the hostages, maybe make out like they're going to beat them or kill them, and make them put on a jumpsuit, and then say, go and dig or go and load cash or whatever, and then take somebody who was in a jumpsuit and take off the jumpsuit and put it in them in another room. So when the whole robbery was said and done, because like I said, they're in the vault, they're digging up the place, and they build a false wall because Clive Owen wants to walk out of the bank with the documents. So he stays behind this makeshift wall for about a week until he's able to leave the bank, just walk out of the bank with the documents and some diamonds and stuff. Everybody else gets arrested at the end of the siege. Now, Denzel Washington, who is the police, the one leading this, trying to, save the hostage business, he's now interviewing everybody because at the end of the raid, everybody takes off their jumpsuits. Now, you have hostages who are genuine civilians, and you have robbers posing as civilians. So when Denzel Washington is interviewing people, and this is the only woman I can really remember, she had some really large breasts. He's asking the two of them, because remember, every robber's got a physically similar civilian to match. So he's asking the woman who's like with the big breasts, who's a civilian, so who did you plan it with? And who did you do it with? And he's like, I just went into the bank to cash some money. And then like other people are being asked, like, can you describe what the robbers look like? We don't know. They had on these jumpsuits. And like, let's just use the woman with the big breasts because she's the one I could really remember. It's like, and there was this one and she had really big breasts. So when he's told there's one with really big breasts, he's got like 2 or 3 women with huge breasts. So he's like, at least one of you is a robber, but you're all saying the same thing, which is, I just went into the bank to do my usual banking business and da 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 da. You have to have, the point of this story in the movie is, when you're going to do something, and like I said, I'm working on the assumption that there really is a secret society, there really is an orchestrated attack on humanity, and we're being ushered into the end of the world, that the coronavirus, whether it's a real virus or a biological attack, it has been orchestrated to bring about a multifaceted collapse, right? That's where I'm coming from. You have to have genuine casualties. It's like, why? Because people who are genuinely emotionally attached are better actors than actually trying to get actors. The more people who know things and the more people you are paying to operate under a certain guise, the more risk you have of one of them becoming a whistleblower and exposing the whole operation. So if you're going to get people to testify to what you are doing, it's just better to get genuine victims. So how does this relate to the coronavirus? You have celebrities, people who are paid actors, allegedly contracting the coronavirus. You have politicians. Boris Johnson's just been, allegedly diagnosed with coronavirus. You have people like Justin Trudeau's wife, Tom Hanks, a number of people, high profile individuals. Whether they really genuinely acquired COVID-19, whether they just have coronavirus, which is not, it's necessarily COVID-19, because coronavirus is a broad family of viruses, and it could be anything from just a cold or common flu. So it's not necessarily COVID-19. But, okay, you have these high profile individuals who are set up to, Idris Elba talk to the whole world like, oh my God, I'm under quarantine because I tested positive for coronavirus, blah, blah, blah. That is going to instill within people fear, and it's going to instill within people this idea that, look, anybody can get it. And they could genuinely have coronavirus. They could genuinely have COVID-19. But they are just unscripted, uninformed actors being used as a puppet to go and speak to the masses. Just like those civilians in the bank who now become a smokescreen for the real robbers in the bank. They are genuine hostages, but it's hard for them to prove it because everybody who came out of that bank is saying the exact same thing. I mean, you couldn't really even say, let's do DNA on the jumpsuits because they're rotating the jumpsuits around civilians and robbers. So even if you swipe the inside of the jumpsuit, you still would find DNA from everybody because they're taking off one to put on another. So it's not like you could even do forensics to track who was in the jumpsuit because DNA will show up, the DNA of multiple people on each jumpsuit because of the way they moved the civilians from one room to the next or made them work and then transferred them to a different place. It just became confusing for everybody except the people who knew who were robbers. It's the same thing with this situation. if you've got Freemasons, if you've got people in the Illuminati, if you've got people in secret societies, if you've got then, above the Illuminati, maybe a few handful of people, everybody thinks they're in the know, but there's a limit to how much they actually know. Because allegedly, if you are in Freemasonry, whatever degree you're at, when you progress to the next degree, they kind of tell you, forget what you know. That wasn't the complete truth. That wasn't the whole of the story. Here is the true story. And then you move to the next degree and they tell you the same thing. So every time you move up, it's like you feel fully convinced about what you know until someone tells you, you don't really know what you think you know. We're going to show you there's a deeper level to what you know, blah, 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 blah. So genuine casualties, genuine deaths. And, I kind of want to I'll call it COVID-19 because that's its name. But I don't know whether I believe it's a naturally occurring virus, whether it's a virus that mutated because Wuhan has a lot of 5G, which people are suggesting could even have caused this virus to mutate. We don't know if it was concocted in a lab and it spilt. We don't know if it was a deliberate attack on the Chinese people. We don't know if it's a virus or some other kind of biological weapon. It's just there's so many possibilities about what's going on that it's too confusing to say whatever this is, this potential virus that could be a natural virus, but it could be a biological weapon. I just can't say that every single time. So I'm going to stick with COVID-19. But when I say COVID-19, that's just whatever this thing is, because we don't really know where it came from, how it came to be in the open, and how it managed to spread. And that's why I wanted to do this video as well, because people keep talking about, well, what about Spanish flu? We had SARS, we had MERS, we had this, we had that. When we had these other epidemics, all right, let me just go back to the point about the actors. For you to be able to do what you did, like do what Bush proposed, unite the world, aliens are not going to do it because there's too many people who don't care. Something like a virus is a very clever way to actually unite the whole planet, because a lot of people fear getting sick. But getting sick is something that can happen to pretty much anybody. And what better virus to pick than a virus that's commonly already floating around, is already making people sick. But not only that, it's got such a broad spectrum in terms of how many different types of coronavirus are out there. Even if you test for coronavirus, the chances of you being tested positive are quite high, from cold and flu right up to this thing that is called COVID-19 that's making people sick and unable to breathe. Then you have I was watching a show called I think it was Good Morning Britain, which is kind of like daytime talk, not daytime talk light. It's like a news typey show. It comes on in the morning before you're going out. And there was a lady who allegedly she got coronavirus, COVID-19, and she said like every breath was like breathing glass. You can't breathe. You don't realize how much you appreciate your breath until it's taken away. She said it was horrific. And then she made a statement, and it was like, whatever you believe in, whichever God you believe in, like, once she made that statement, I completely switched off. I didn't even finish hearing what she said, although I'm listening to her. Because again, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, out of all the things you could have said in all the world, why did you make such a statement as whatever God you believe in? You know, as if to say everybody believes in the same God, or there's only one God and we all believe in him. But, you know, it's just an expression of, you know, different ways of expressing belief. Anytime I see that, I'm thinking about the push to a one world religion, because, and I don't want to go there because that wasn't really what I wanted to say. But again, this woman, I'll come back to that point because I want to kind of touch on the different aspects of what could, or what I believe is coming according to scripture. She's like showing the pictures of herself in the bed, you know, looking really rough. And, you know, she's giving this big sob story. And it's just day by day, fear-mongering and propaganda, fear-mongering and propaganda. One of the things that I was so, you know, impressed, stroke, amazed by is the ad campaign. Okay. Everywhere I look, I see official documents for whatever organization about coronavirus. I go to use the underground, or if you're in the States, we call it the subway. And there's, you know, TFL posters. You're at the bus stop and the bus stop has got the screen and, you know, like a billboard, electronic billboard. All of a sudden, something comes up about coronavirus. You know, whatever the organization is, they've printed literature in order to send out to, you know, each establishment. So Costa's got a sign, there's NHS posters, Transport for London posters. And I thought to myself, this is serious. Not coronavirus. The effort these people have gone to make sure that we are constantly bombarded and reminded by this fear and this threat, to the point where, you know, people aren't just getting a piece of A4 paper and scribbling something on it. There's actually an ad campaign that's been created to keep reinforcing this message of social distancing and coronavirus and washing your hands. And I thought, this is unprecedented. I have never seen such an effort. Even when we had diseases that were more aggressive, killing more people, you know, there wasn't this kind of push to spread this message of fear. Another thing that is used to spread fear is visuals. You see, this whole tissue business started with, allegedly, as far as I understand, Hawaii. In Hawaii being an island, obviously they rely heavily on things being imported into the country. But we all know islands, they can really suffer when there's any kind of natural disaster because they're small and they can just be battered by the elements, to be fair. So Hawaii, anytime they sense there's a natural disaster coming, they naturally stockpile. So somebody posting, and this is kind of going back and forth. I told you it's like a flow diagram. It's not complicated, but everything is intertwined one with another. So if you see me kind of jumping about from one bit to another, it's because one thing is not one thing. One thing is connected to several other things, and they're connected to several other things. So for Hawaii, what we have here is fear-mongering and propaganda by using toilet tissue. And it didn't make any sense to say, well, this toilet tissue craze, everybody's looking at it, and even myself, I was looking at it from the surface, like, why the hell is, out of all the things in the world, if you're going to stockpile, was the first thing you thought of tissue? Obviously, we know that somebody posted an image or something on social media of them stockpiling tissue because they know, like, if we can't get imports into this country, we're going to run out of tissue. So everybody started to stockpile. I believe it was the American mainstream media ran with the story of the stockpiling, and then that became a craze. Around the world, people saw this and they started stockpiling tissue. Now, human beings being the followers that they are, and, you know, what we would call the Jones theory, nobody wants to be the first to do something, but nobody wants to be left out. It was so simple, but so fiendish. It's so clever. Even with previous flu pandemics or epidemics, you couldn't really tell who the hell had the flu. When we had swine flu and bird flu, there were people who had it, but even some of them were like, oh, they gave me the Tamiflu. I'm not even going to take it. I'm just going to ride it out. And they were fine. Okay. But if you want to spread fear, you have to kind of systematically and constantly make people afraid. And one of the ways that they did that was picking something that was very visible. Before the ad campaign started and you had people like Boris and Trump, you know, Boris and Trump are basically the British and American equivalent of each other. They're a bit of, you know, a pair of boneheads. You know, they say what they think. They think it's cool and funny. Sometimes they don't seem to know their ass from their elbow. And now it's like, oh, actually, I need to retract my statement and I need to think again because now I've got COVID-19. And it's like, have you really got it? Did they give it to you? Did you deliberately try to pick it up? Like, you know, are you the new George, like, you know, Bush Jr., who's kind of like, you're in a position of power, but you're clearly a little bit of a buffoon? It's like, you know, who knows if Boris really has COVID-19? But okay, we digress. When you go out and you hear people are stockpiling tissue, now your senses are alerted to look for that. And what do you see when you go out on road? Not now because there's no bloody tissue in the shops, you know. The first time I saw tissue after like 2 weeks, I was like, oh! I felt like I found gold because, in fact, the first time I saw tissue in a shop, it was one of these little convenience store mini mart type places. I was like, oh, yeah. I swear I lost my breath. I was like, tissue. He's like, yeah, what's the big deal? And it's like, when you keep going to the supermarket and every time there's no kitchen roll, no tissue, you just feel like, oh, when will I see you again kind of thing. Then I actually got a 24 pack a couple of weeks ago, walking down the street with it, feeling so proud. And I'm like guarding it with my life, looking at anybody looking at me funny. And this woman and this couple came towards me, and the woman, she's not even looking at me. She's just giving me the glare at the tissue, like, where the hell did you get that from? I was like, Morris said, you come too close to me. I won't be responsible for my actions. I didn't really need the tissue that desperately, but if tissue's not coming back on the shelf anytime soon, you got to grab it when you see it, right? But anything smaller, like anything bigger than a 9-pack, you can't really conceal it. It doesn't really fit in a bag. Most of the time it comes with its own handle, so you just carry it openly wherever you're going. So you go in a supermarket and somebody's got like 6 packs of tissue. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I don't get tissue, I'm not going to get tissue. And then there's some people that's just got a lot of people in their house, so they go through tissue like crazy. So everybody kind of sheep factors one another into getting this tissue. Then you go out on road and you see people carrying packs of tissue, loading tissue in their car, fighting over tissue, asking each other, where did you get that from? And over time, fear begins to build. Now, obviously, people then started to think to themselves, why the hell are we buying all this tissue? If we don't have any food, we won't need the tissue. Then the run on the food started. And me included, what did everybody do? We ran out talking about how all our shelves are empty. And now social media is used to keep hyping the fear. So when people say, we had SARS and we had MERS and we had this and blah, 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 social media wasn't at the level that it's at now. There wasn't as much. I mean, don't forget, over the last few years, you've also had a lot of celebrities trying to really flood into YouTube. Everybody's got Twitter and things like that. So information, whether it's true or false, is being shared so rapidly that it's very easy to influence a large number of people now. If they're saying about half of the planet is on lockdown, when the scripture says 1/3 of the world's population will die, we believe, you can now see how easy it is to actually do that, because we're at the technological stage where you can influence people in developing countries because they're working hard to bring the developing world into the 21st century through technology. It's not because they care about educating and equipping the people. It's about being able to sell them propaganda. Because people who are not caught up in this world like that, in the Western way of living, they will see Western living for what it is. People who are like, you know, in certain cults and communes, maybe Amish, some of these other kind of more closed off groups, they look at these things as a bit of a waste of time. They're not going to be caught up in the hype because for them, they're living outside of that reality. So for people, the more people who don't subscribe to Western culture are more likely to rebel and raise issues against it. This is why they're working hard to push all these agendas. And I'm going to get to that like shortly, but starting the fear with something very visible, it just makes sense. And now what do we have? We have the whole gloves and mask business. So you go out on road now and there's all this fear about how many people are being killed. I mean, you can't turn on anything or get anything without it being about coronavirus. You decide not to wear a mask and gloves, even though masks don't really help you. What really helps